Zoom module, you'll notice two buttons. There's one that says Q&A, and that's a great way to interact with Dr. Baird. If you have questions about any of the content in this presentation, we'll do our best to answer those. We usually answer them at the bottom of the hour and the top of the hour. So we'll have those little breaks in there. Also, there's a chat button a few doors down from that. That's a great way to kind of interact and say like, hey, what was that Kane Waters resource he mentioned? Or what was that podcast episode? And I'll try to put links over there the best I can. Yes, this presentation is being recorded. Dr. Baird has hit that record button. I see it over there in the corner. So we will send this out in your email today along with a bunch of resources and links that we mentioned in today's program. Feel free to share that video with your friends, your peers, and of course your team. Very important. Invite your team next time. We do these every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And then I think the last thing is we will have an offer today. If you feel like taking advantage of that, we'll have a simple little URL that you can click over to and fill out some information. But that's it. So without further ado, let's go with Dr. Baird. Good morning, sir.
Right. Good morning. I've got my usual baseball cap on because it's hard to get a haircut right now. So we're kind of stuck where we're at. Hopefully, we're seeing a lot of, maybe a lot of good news, I think, with the coronavirus and with, potentially we've reached this flattening of the curve somewhat. I know there's a lot of conversations about restarting back up. I'm still kind of holding to my prediction of June 15th will be the day that dental practices are up and running, but there'll be different areas of the country, I think, that are going to be ahead of the curve. So, and that's great, but you're going to have to be ready to start then. So today we're going to talk about, again, predictive analytics and about expenses and budget to actual. And we're going to go through that. But let's first talk about the crisis, and this is stuff, I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of friends on here. So let's get started. How do I prepare? And I've been talking about this for weeks. I look at this like the Indy 500. When we're open, the flag's going to drop, and it's going to be a race to see if I can accomplish my goals for 2020 that I set in 2019, meaning can I offset this loss of revenue by being smart and doing certain things? And I do think you can. Again, now's the time to begin working on your business. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to talk about, and we're going to do a program, I think next week or week after, on scheduling and how to do this. But this is the one opportunity that you have that we've never had. I mean, we've never taken, 100, 200, 400 people off of our schedule, and now we have the opportunity to put them back on our schedule. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to call your team and say, okay, I want you to start putting people back in, let's go. What I want you to do is I want you to run a report of all the people that you need to schedule, and with name, email, phone numbers. But more importantly, in the right column, I want how much productivity did those patients have? Okay. It's not that I'm prioritizing and not going to take care of emergencies and those things, but if you're doing, the average dentist does $425 an hour. Let's just say you're doing $500 an hour now. That's $4,000 a day. What I want you to do is I want you to specifically schedule these patients that need dentistry on a daily basis as you get back to double your productivity. Instead of 4,000 a day, it's 8,000 or 9,000 or 10,000 a day. I want you to strategically do that. In between those appointments, that's where you're going to have time for emergency patients and all of those types of things. But your thought process now has to be, we're going to blow it out when we get started. Some people are saying, oh, we're going to have a slowdown. We might be seeing 30% of the number of patients that we were seeing. I believe that there's going to be a backlog of people who need to get dentistry done. So that's my thought process. And there's no reason. I tell a story. I had an associate left my practice, and a good friend of mine happened to take 6 employees with him, and he was a $100,000 producer. took 6 employees, including a hygienist that was averaging about $20,000 a month. Within 3 months after they left, no additional hires, we were producing more than we did before they left. So it just shows what happens when you focus and when you're intentional about what you're doing. We're going to talk about today a little bit more about creating a QuickBooks file for your company, and it's critical with predictive analytics, and you're going to get a link to both of those today. Use the time to review your production by procedure reports. I've been talking about this for the last few weeks. I always run a report for the year in December, the end of December. I run a report for that particular year. For instance, 2019, I ran that report. Then I would run the same report for 2018 and compare procedures that I did over the year. And what I would find is one year I did 500 bone grafts and the next year I did 300. What's the difference? Did I have 200 less patients who needed it? Probably not. And so I'm looking for metrics that are significant differences. And I want to look into that and find out why. What can we do now in our business? I'm going to go back through this process. Furlough all employees, making them eligible for enhanced unemployment benefits. You can hire back on a part-time hourly basis to make phone calls, assist with emergency patients. Every state is different. You need to understand this. So you need to call your state unemployment and find out how many hours can you hire somebody part-time so it does not affect their unemployment benefits. I know we're rotating people through for emergencies. Talk to your bank for a business line of credit. This is, it's critical. Negotiate with your vendors on payout or delay of certain bills and invoices. Everybody's doing this now. When I started talking about this a month ago, I think most people weren't thinking this, but this is, they're becoming much easier to work with because they realize, well, heck, if you don't pay, if they don't work with you, well, then they're going to lose customers. This is what I'm calling the payroll protection plan is gambling 101. And you must apply by June 30th. I read something today in the Dallas Business Journal that they think that funds are going to run out in the next 2 weeks. Now, I know the Congress is trying to pass and add another $250 billion to the package and have said that they would do whatever it takes. But then you've got politics involved, and those idiots are over there arguing about adding to this plan. I think it will get added, but that's just, I'm not an accountant. I'm not an attorney. I'm just telling you what I think. If you think the money is going to run out, do it now. Get the application for PPP. I've got friends that have been getting funded for theirs. The big banks are very slow. The small community banks outside, I had a friend go in here and filled out the application in 20 minutes and was funded 3 days later. So, and that was just a week ago. So anyway, understand that. And if you think funds will be increased, if the 350, that should be $1 billion, runs out, then wait, to apply, down the road a little bit, because let unemployment take care of your employees. And, when they come back on, then you'll be able to start the clock running on that 8 weeks of the PPP loan, possibly grant for forgiveness. So, but what's worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is you go get it now. You still don't open for another 2 months. The loan's not going to be forgiven, but at least you have the cash. Leave the employees furloughed. You're not open, and put that cash in an account. It's a 1% note for 2 years. And I honestly believe the government, in their infinite wisdom, is saying it's a 2-year loan. It was a 10-year loan. Now it's a 2-year. Well, they're going to have to redo that because there's a lot of people that won't be able to pay that back, and they're not going to force all these businesses that are doing this into bankruptcy. Again, just my thoughts. Kick the can down the road as far as possible and get the PPP loan. We have some idle loan docs. I have 3 of my buddies yesterday got the $10,000 put in their account, which is amazing since they applied for it 3 weeks ago. And they said you would get it within 3 days, and it's 3 weeks, but that's typical government operation. Negotiate with your utilities. Free up as much credit as possible. Don't stop marketing. Utilize social media to communicate weekly with your patients and employees. I have a good friend of mine, Scott Westermeyer up in Buffalo, and he was doing live Facebooks to his patients and saying, "Hey, if you need us, we're still here for emergency patients. I'm just wanting to let you know." And he was also out marketing for new employees through his Facebook Live. "Hey, if you know somebody that's interested, this is what we do for sterilization. These are the great things that we're doing." Yada yada yada. So. And you can utilize a revenue management tool like Abella to increase your collections. Now, this, everybody that listens, I feel like that I started the Productive Dentist Academy 16 years ago, and I started Comprehensive Finance 9 years ago, and that was after the 2008 banking crisis and everything that happened after that, because of what I saw as a need at that time. But we'll talk about Abella here in a little bit. But things are going to get better. They just are at some point. We just don't know when. But I like what I'm seeing on the news. I like what I'm seeing across the country. And I honestly believe it's because we have been social distancing and, staying out of the mainstream. But I think businesses are going to start popping back up. So let's look at predictive analytics. What does that even mean? And this is a little bit of a review from last time, but for those that are new, I want you to understand what I'm talking about. It's the ability to consistently and accurately predict your business metrics. It's predictive revenue analytics, accurately predicting your productivity and expected collections in your practice. You need to know these numbers. Predictive expense analytics accurately predicts what you're going to spend on things. And income analytics. How would you like to know at the beginning of every month, if you followed through with the things that you've said you were going to do, that you would make X amount of dollars, and you would know it ahead of time. That's the way to run a business. 97% of dentists don't evaluate their business on a real-time basis. We've had over 1,500 dentists go through Productive Dentist Academy, in which 7 was actually running their business with a budget to actual and understood their business. Everybody else is, relying on their P&L that they get from their accountant, and it's usually 30 days or 45 days after submitting to them. If you're getting let's say you're giving them all your info and you're getting it a week later, okay, that's fine, but I'm still going to recommend to do what I talk about here. It's like driving your car looking in the rearview mirror. It's just not very helpful. Often by the time you realize there's a problem, it's too late. Predictive revenue. Why do I need to do this? Well, if you're not setting goals, you're going to be on the dental roller coaster. I think, Stephen, we probably could send them the 5 articles. We'll get that. If anybody's interested, it's talking about the 1 month up, 1 month down. Yeah, I'm up, I'm excited. The next month I'm down. The month I'm up is when we, have great production. The next month I go to a seminar or a meeting and I buy a bunch of crap, and then the bills come in from the month before, and then I have a slow month, and so I'm either happy or sad. And I don't like practicing that way. I want to be consistent. I want to be predictive in success. If you don't know what you're going to produce and collect in your practice, how can you know what your expenses are going to be? Especially in the variable realm, but you still want to know all of these things. Knowing expected revenues leads to an inefficient scheduling, which we're going to be doing a program on next week or week after. And it leads to increased stress by running behind during the day. So, most people, they run behind. If you don't understand the scheduling, then you run behind, you catch up at lunch, then you run behind, you catch up at the end of the day. So predictive expenses, what can I do? You first have to get QuickBooks or some other accounting software, and I'm going to show you and give you some examples of exactly what we're talking about. And it's what we do at Productive Dentist Academy, helping our docs, set up their business so that they know what's going on. You set up your chart of accounts. Have your comptroller. I call it comptroller. Pay your expenses 1 day per week. So they get all the bills in every week, and 1 day, for it usually takes an hour and a half or 2 hours using the software, you can pay your bills. Even in a large practice like we built, $5 million a year business, we can still write most expenses in a couple of hours, and that's once a week. It can be you, your spouse, or a trusted employee. you must go back and look at all expenses for the previous year, 12 months. Average expenditures in every area in the chart of accounts. I'll show you what I'm talking about. You know that billboard ads, and we'll look at it. For instance, patient fees. We have a budget of $98,000. That budget is an actual collections goal. So in our dental software, that might be $100,000 if in our dental software that says that's our goal. But we also know we have a 98% collection rate, which gives us a budget of $98,000. So we're expecting to collect $98,000. And what you'll see here is this is the date, this is the budget, this is the dollars over budget. But this number over here, this percent of budget, I look at that, I don't know, every other day, just to see how things are going, how our expenses are going. This is not unusual for you to look down and see radio advertising 3,000, but we budgeted 3,000, so we spent 3,000. Pay-per-click campaign, and more than likely, you're not going to see everything looking 100%, 100%, 100% like this. I just use this as a reference. Bank service charges. I can promise you will not see all these look at 100%, but as you go back and look through your general ledger that your accountant gives you, and you start taking every check that you wrote and you put them into these categories, you'll start seeing what is my average. And I'll show you why that's important. Again, every single thing, building insurance, a lot of times these things are really set numbers. I would rather have a goal that's higher a little bit, or have it exactly that number. 535, that's my AACD membership. I know what that's going to be, and I know this is going to be in January, so it's paid in January. You'll notice that the rest of the year there's a zero on a budget for that item. I know my building insurance. I know my umbrella policy, and so when we look at these things, and I'm always looking over here to see, okay, everything's looking good. We're at what we expected to be at. Janitorial expenses, say, hey, we saved a little money here. I love seeing numbers that are low, below 100%, because it means we actually spent less than we planned on spending. Now, what I will tell you is, if this number, and I'm going to give you the example of this 91%, if it stayed 91% or 85, and it stayed that way for 2 months or 3 months, I'm going to change my budget, because I want this to be accurate within 3 or 4%. And truthfully, you can actually do this a year ahead and actually know exactly what your expenses are going to be. This shows, again, 100% on everything. But over here, repairs and maintenance, 143. That's 71% of what I budgeted. That's a little extra cash that I could have for something else. Equipment repairs, 453 to 500, 90%. Again, office expenses, and there's no such thing as a miscellaneous category, period. Everything is every check I write is put into a category. And when you look here, you see, okay, we budgeted for me making my 35% that we talk about, and we budgeted for $795, but we actually made $1,700. So I got my money based on my production, which is figured into my expenses. And this is net income, which is extra money for being an owner. I love seeing this number be positive. So predictive expenses, you'll be able to get all the checks you have written in the general ledger that your accountant uses for your P&L. Your chart of accounts, this is important. Your chart of accounts will not have the same categories on your P&L from your accountant as your accountant has, he has depreciation, he has all these other things. And they're going to argue with you a little bit. Oh, well, we don't want to do this. We use these categories for a reason. Fine, you use those categories, but I'm going to use these categories. Once you get this done, have your accountant use your chart of accounts to modify theirs, not vice versa. So wherever you want to put your expenses, you put your expenses, let them deal with the rest of it. But don't just let them, this is the average dental office, because you're not going to be the average dental office if you're doing this. You're going to be the 3%. And accountants are extremely, I'm not going to use that word. They're very repetitive And so they want to do it. This is the way we do it. I don't want to change. Well, I tell you what, this is the way we do it. And you're either going to work with us or you're not. It's your business. They're your accountant, and they're your bean counter that helps you with a lot of things, taxes and all of that. But they're not helping you run your business. But you're now going to have data that is accessible at any time and it's accurate. As you look at this new information weekly, for 10 minutes, you now know what's going on in your business. This is a great example right here. You're looking at, when I'm looking at this chart of accounts and I'm looking at this budget to actual, we budgeted $7,200. And Dr. Bob's lab fees were $10,335. Well, that right there is a huge no-no. And what do I mean by that? Well, when I see this so much higher and I see a percentage that's above 103 or 104%, I'm okay with spending 3 or 4% more in a category, but I'm not okay spending 43. Well, Bruce, what do I do? Well, it's simple. I'm doing monthly cash to cash. This has to be changed. You're not going to pay this. All I would pay is $7,200. When would I pay the rest? If this is January's numbers, I'd pay it on February 2nd or 3rd. My lab is going to go, okay, I got to check for $7,200. They still owe us this. Okay. But with my numbers, this number would only be $7,200. So we're not going to spend more than what we budgeted for. Okay. We're just not. And if we see that happen more than once or twice, then I need to change my budget, because my budget is my predictor. This is another category. We're spending $3,000 a month on radio advertising, and we're doing that pretty consistently. And all of a sudden I see 60% and 65%. Now I can understand gifts, 1 month being less. I picked up an extra $70 or, $51.55. Great. I'm not going to worry too much about a small number like that with a 65%. But if that 65% in this category happened every month, I'd change my budget. Does that make sense? Now, looking here, what happened? And I would go to my comptroller, and early in the month, I'm not going to make a big deal about this. But let's say we've got a week left in the month and we've already paid $800 for radio advertising. I'd go to the comptroller and say, what's going on? Why we predicted 3,000, but we only have 1,800. Oh, well, I didn't get it. I didn't get the invoice from this radio station. Well, does that mean we're not going to have to pay it? Well, no. I said, okay, we'll call them, have them, faxing is out of, I don't know if anybody faxes anymore, but have them email you the invoice and pay it this month, because we budgeted for that. Because what I don't want to have happen is next month, when I budgeted for 3,000, have 1,200 come in on next month's bill. Does that make sense? So this is what predictive revenues, predictive analytics, and budget to actual is all about. You still got to do your goal setting. It's interesting to note that the average productivity per hour in the US is 425 or 3,400 a day. Based on a 1,600 hour year, that's 680,000 a year. At Productive Dentist Academy, we use many of these principles to routinely increase doctors' productivity by 300 an hour. And that's an additional $500,000 a year. It's not that hard to go from 425 to 725. You just have to have a plan. You have to understand what it is that you're accomplishing, and you have to set goals. Sounds good, but how do I do it? You got to be 100% committed to reaching your goals, which means, and I'm going to say this, it's kind of interesting because everybody will answer it the same way. I got a patient comes in on Monday and they have $3,000 worth of dentistry, a bridge, a 3-unit bridge, $3,000, and they're ready to do it right now. When do you do it? Well, everybody on the call, unless you've been to PDA, they're going to say the same thing. Well, I'm doing it right now. Okay, well, that's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to look, and I would already know this if they walked in at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd already know if I was going to be on goal for the day or not. So let's say I'm on goal for today, and Bob wants to get his bridge done. And I say, Bob, are you going to be available tomorrow? I really would like to do this tomorrow because I've got some time really blocked out and I want to make sure I have plenty of time. Bob says, yeah, I'll be around. Why don't I do it then? The reason I pushed him into tomorrow was because I knew tomorrow I wasn't on goal. Today I was. And actually by moving Bob to tomorrow, I'm going to be on goal for tomorrow. So I'm only committed to two things in dentistry. One is taking great care of my patients. Number two is to reach my goals. And that's how businesses run. You can't do it if you don't diagnose it. If you're sitting around doing one tooth at a time dentistry, it's going to be tough for you to set goals because you're just not seeing that much dentistry. Have a healthy new patient flow. Do comprehensive exams. Use predictive analytics for expenses. I calculate, and I went over this the other day, had some questions about it, but I calculate my profitability incentive point. What is the profitability incentive point? It's when all bills are paid and you're paid 35% of what you collected for the month on your own personal productivity. Okay. So why do I like to know that number? I want to know that number because when I reach that number, I'm getting paid. Now, everything above that, I can share with the team with bonus structures and those types of things, but I'm making 80 cents on the dollar for everything that I do above PIP. Why? Because I give 20% to my team and it's split up among them as on a 3-month rolling average. People always say, well, my goals, if we're not going to reach goal this month, then they start shoving stuff into next month. Well, if you put it on a 3-month average, that won't happen because it's all going to come out in the average. Knowing PIP sets all discussions about goals and productivity per hour. You need to know, and how do you know what your PIP? You have to know all your expenses. You have to know what 35% of your predicted collections is going to be for the month. And if you're not committed to it, well, then it's really not going to work. Let's say you have a PIP of 100,000 per month. That means the office needs to collect 100,000 for you to get your 35% or 35,000 for the month. And that's assumes no hygiene. With hygiene, let's say hygiene's doing 20,000 a month and you're doing 80,000 on average. There's still your $100,000 PIP. So you would have in that calculation 80,000 times 35%, 28,000 in your salary. Even though you're a business owner, you're being paid like an associate. Everything above PIP is what you make as being an owner. Okay, but you want to guarantee you're at least being paid the 35% so that you're not giving bonuses out to people before you've ever been paid. And I've seen all kinds of bonus structures. Average production per hour of $625 per hour based on 128 hours. That is your 80,000 number. So that's how to figure it. If your average is 500 an hour, well, you're going to have to work 160 hours to reach that 80,000 number, which is what you need to get to the 100,000, which is paying all your bills. Or you can increase your productivity to $625 an hour. This allows you to know what you must to make 35% of what you collect. Everything above that is profit for being an owner. You must commit to producing whatever it takes to reach PIP. What about vacation times? That's an interesting question. Most dentists don't take more than 1 week off. And let me tell you about vacations. Well, if I'm going to take a week off, that means I'm going to work less hours. I'm not working 128, but my PIP didn't change. So I've got a couple choices. One, I can say I'm going to work, I want my production per hour not to be 425 or 5. I'm going to have a production per hour of 650 based on my vacation. Now, how do I know how to get to 650? Well, I know when my vacation is. It's 2 months away. As I get patients coming in that need specific higher end procedures, I push them to that month where I know I'm going to be off. And again, I'm predicting I'm going to be off because I am, and I'm putting in higher end procedures during that time so that it does not affect me at all. All right, Stephen, let's look at some questions. I bet we have a few.
I think you gobsmacked them for a little bit today, but they're starting to come in. I think they were taking screenshots of all those great slides that you had.
Awesome. That's good.
All right. So first question is for Dr. Gregory Stroll. How would predictive analytics differ for an oral surgeon?
It's going to be exactly the same. It's going to be exactly the same. Now, again, it's depending on with an oral surgeon that has a referral base and has got referrals coming in, and that if that's where your productivity is coming from and your collections are coming from, then you're going to go back, look at the averages, and you're going to use those averages. As you do specific marketing to your referral base and it goes up, your goals and your numbers will go up. But it'll be exactly the same.
All right, perfect. Hey, if anybody wants to get in some more questions, that Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom, go ahead and type them in and we'll get Dr. Baird to answer them. Okay, we do have another one here from anonymous attendee. If you keep pushing expense overages into future months, wouldn't that eventually catch up to you?
It will if you don't adjust your future months. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have supply cost and it's a percentage. That is a variable expense, not a fixed expense. So it goes up and down based upon previous months. And let's say you're spending 5% on supply costs. And let's say it's January and your supply costs come in at $6,000. Okay. And it was going to be $5,000. I'm not going to pay that bill until next month. But what I know is I have a couple of choices for next month. I can either raise that budgeted item to include that, so I know. And if it was to happen again the next month and all of a sudden I start seeing a change in the way that my business is running on supplies, I can call for a spending freeze. I can look at my lab bills are high. Sometimes my lab bills get way out of whack because I'm doing a lot of all on 4s and all on 6s, whatever it is. And then there's some months where I'm doing a ton of CERAC, which is much lower cost. So I want to look at, again, this is being predictive. You're exactly right. If you kept going over and you kept doing it, you're never going to catch up. But that's why having it is so critical. If you don't have this information, you're counting on your accountant to do it for you 2 months from now. Or giving you the information. I want it now so that I can plan my business. And if all of a sudden I realize that, doggone it, my supplies are running 6% and I'm going to have to figure 6% into my deal, or I'm going to have to say it's 5%, go to my person in the office that does our ordering and say, look, this is your budget. Don't spend over that. Well, you need to quit going to meetings and buying all this crap. Well, I understand. Okay, we're on the same page. But I'd rather know today and now and ongoing as opposed to knowing later when it's too late. You've already done what you've done. And then guess what happens when you do that? Instead of you getting paid your $28,000, you only get 24, or you get 22, or you got 10 categories that are over. Well, now it's no longer predictive. You no longer have the bull by the horns as far as running your business. And what I'll tell you that to me changed my life when I started doing this, because I was a total jerk because I was under pressure, just like you are. If you own practice, I'm stressed because I didn't know what my business was doing. I felt like we were doing good one month and then we weren't doing good the next month. Once I got this straight, once I got this understood, everything changed. My personality changed because I knew where my business was. I wasn't freaking out. I literally became a much kinder and gentler Bruce, if you will, because I have a tendency, I can be pretty much straight in your face and this is the way we got to do it. Grew up the son of a Marine aviator. He taught me a lot. One of them is it's black and white. This is the way we do it. Unfortunately, when you're not following the rules like we do, then that can fall by the wayside and you get stressed about your business, which in turn makes you stressed at home, which in turn makes you stressed at the office, which in turn makes you a turd, which in turn makes you not get patients to say yes to treatment because you're stressed. This is something that starts, and if you'll follow it, I guarantee you, your stress levels will drop immensely.
That was a great pearl of wisdom there, Dr. Baird. Thank you for sharing that. Is that PIP 35% to doctor, the collections for the doctor and the hygienist working with him or her?
It's every bill that you pay, and it's based on hygiene. Some people pay a daily rate. Some people pay a daily rate plus a percentage. Whatever that percentage is, when you predictively do the same thing for your hygiene department with their hourly, if they're producing 100 an hour, they work 8 hours, their goal is 800. And so you're going to plan based on previous history of what they've done. If you've got a hygienist doing 150 an hour and you got one doing 100, I'm going to predict the one doing 150 at 150 an hour. I'm going to predict the one that does 100 on average at 100. What's their salary based on that? It's included in that PIP categories. So you'll know all of your bills and all of your projected bills if your producers, your hygienists and associates and you actually do what you say you're going to do. And how do you do that? You have to set those goals on your daily schedules, your team. When I talk about scheduling, you're going to hopefully understand it even better, but it's really at that point, it's like, oh, okay, I got it now.
All right, perfect. Dr. Adolfo Baquero asks, I got $7K out of the $10K advance for the idle loan. Is there any restrictions suspended? 75% payroll, 25% rest? It states that it's forgivable. I just want to make sure. I also understand this loan will be added to the which one? The SBA loan, I assume. It won't be the PPP. Thanks a lot. You guys are awesome.
Oh, thank you. My understanding, is that the PPP needs to be used 75% for payroll and then the rest for interest. My understanding was that 10,000 is going to be part of that, and it is forgivable. My understanding is you can spend that on things that you need to spend it on. It does not have to be payroll, does not have to be interest on a loan. It could be for a mortgage payment. I mean, that's the way I've read it. I haven't heard different. So, and again, they keep changing the rules, which makes it really difficult.
All right. From one of our longtime webinar viewers, Dr. Salisbury, he says, when do we get to view the QuickBooks?
The QuickBooks. Well, you got a chance to see that QuickBooks back there, Dr. Salisbury. Those are all the categories on how to do it. Now, there are lots of classes that you can take on QuickBooks. QuickBooks has a lot of tutorials. My wife put this together for me, and it probably took her a better part of a couple of hours. But like I say, at PDA, we work with you to set up all of your chart of accounts to get this down. And we're going to be doing more courses on it too, as we go forward in the future.
All right, perfect. What about in-office dental membership plans, and how does it affect goals?
Well, it affects goals really based on a reduction in fee. So if you have membership goals, I would have a category for membership numbers. So if you're bringing in $10,000, $12,000 of membership dollars every month, then you'd have a category for that. You'll have a category for membership, and you're budgeting for it, and that would be an income. That would be part of the income, or part of the productivity part. So your income, let me go back. Let me just go back here for a sec. I won't go back. Okay, where am I? Okay. What am I doing here?
Hey, there we go.
I'm going to go back pretty quick here. Sorry, but I want you to see the one category that, to me, right up here, fee for service. I mean, patient fees, 97,000 was the actual, but I have budgeted for 98. Under patient fees, you might have revenue like a membership plan. So those numbers would be included in your budget to actual of what you're doing. If you're growing that business, you're going to be constantly adjusting or tweaking that budget, because you're going to know how many people are in that. But it won't affect your day-to-day operations, your day-to-day looking at this stuff, because you're being predictive. So if you know that you're going to have 20% less on certain procedures, it's not going to matter, because it's going to go right into your fees. Hopefully that's the rest of it's all going to be handled in expenses, just like everything else.
All right, perfect. So we're going to do two more right now, Dr. Baird, and then we'll go through a bell, and then we'll get the rest of y'all's questions at the top of the hour. I threw a y'all in there for you. All right. If we are exceeding goal for the month, our lab expenses will be higher. Why not pay more lab fees in a big month, since the production is covering the expense?
Well, It usually doesn't happen that way, unfortunately. Usually the lab bill comes in the month after we've had the big, because I'll do a huge case and I get the lab bill at the end of the month, or at the first of the next month. And it came off of this huge production from the previous month. So why do I shift that money to the next month? I'm not going to pay any more than what I've set a budget for. I'm not going to pay any more than that. Now, if I see something huge, then I'm going to push it into the next month. But I also have to realize this month I'm behind the 8 ball now. So my lab bill was $3,000 more than what I budgeted at 7. I've got to do a couple of things. Number one is I either have to raise my budget for that month and know what my top line and bottom line numbers are. So I know, does my goal setting achieve my profitability that I want? I have to have that. If I don't have it, well, then I'm just guessing again. So it's intuitive to pay the bills when you get them. It's counterintuitive to say, nope, I'm not paying it. I don't want to mess my budget up for this month. Now, next month, I know I'm behind the 8 ball. I've got more supplies I have to pay for than usual. I'm going to have to call for a spending freeze, or I had 3 other categories that we really did well on, or we had a huge month and we had so much profitability. I'm going to go ahead and pay this, but I'm going to be predictive. If I can do it, I'm going to see it. Let's say I'm going to be at 130% of my budget to actual for my income, for the practice revenue. Well, if I'm over on something, then I can pay it. I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, let's get that out of the way. I don't want that hitting me next month. I've got the money this month to pay it. But if you're waiting on the accountant to send you the stuff, then you have no guidelines on when to pay it. And what you do is you just tend to run looking in the rearview mirror. And it's just not the way to run your business. And I can tell you, once you start running it this way, you'll never do it any other way.
All right. Last one for now. I started leasing a chair in an office and was supposed to begin working 2 days a week when COVID hit. Is predictive analytics recommended for me? Thank you.
If you don't own the business, if you're just going to rent a chair, and it's going to be your business, for instance, if you're a specialist going in, yes, I would figure out what are my expenses. It's going to be much simpler probably in that one chair, but I would. If you're running that business, if you're not running the business, you're not paying the bills, then there's not, you're going to be stuck with what you're being paid percentage wise. But another way of looking at that is, okay, I have my own expenses. If I'm getting paid 50% of what I do, I want to figure, what am I going to do? And I'm going to put that into my budget to actual.
Perfect. Before we get started with Annabella, just wanted to say, hey, everybody, if you missed part 1, don't worry. I will include part 1 predictive analytics in the email today. And yes, we are recording this and we will send out copies of part 1 and part 2 this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Baird move forward with Annabella.
Oh, yeah.
Back to answer your questions about the top of the hour.
Okay. And it's not going to take us that long to go through the Abella, but, for those who, I told you I started Comprehensive Finance Inc. 9 years ago. Abella is a new product. We're continuing to come out with new products with Compassionate Finance, Comprehensive Finance is the company. Compassionate Finance is one of our brands. Abella's another brand. We also have, we do white labels. We wrote the software for one of the 50 largest banks in the United States. It's very forward-facing software, and patients love it. Whereas banks have always used banking software, now they're starting to reach out to consumers, and that's really what our specialty has become, being a fintech company for healthcare. But Abella, when was the last time you upgraded your patient AR billing process? Well, it probably is never, because there is no difference. There hasn't been anything out there. Paper statements are suboptimal, expensive, relatively ineffective. Phone calls can be intrusive, ineffective. We did a survey, 88% of patients want an easier and faster way to pay. The way that we're doing it in today's dentistry is archaic. So introducing Abella, collect more money faster without sending statements and making phone calls. What we know is that in most dental offices, there's one person that works not only insurance, but they also work accounts receivable. and they spend 83% of their time on hold or dealing with insurance companies, 17% of their time collecting money. And it's their least favorite thing that they do. They don't mind being on hold with an insurance company, but it's a lot different type job having to call people for money. But we have to do that. Now, what I will tell you is they always run run your AR report, and you always start at the top, which is the biggest numbers, because it would have the biggest effect. If you could get that person that owes you $3,500, if you could get them to pay, then all the numbers are going to look better. And so it's going to be looking like you're doing a great job, and thank you so much for doing that. Well, this automates that. It doesn't eliminate that person. They never get down to the $81 that owed to them, 50, the 49. They never get to these numbers. They always say, oh, well, we'll pick that up when the patient comes next time to their appointment. And that just never seems to happen. So let's look. You have managing patient AR as a breeze with Abella's integration. We have multi-location management. We submit patients to Abella by the click of a button. Choose to skip or exclude. Your brother came in, you decided, hey, I don't want to send him an invoice. You can go through and you can pick who you want to send him to. Most people you're going to send it to, but you get to pick if you don't. You can preview your patient AR batch before submitting it, and it's automated invoicing. Patients receive a link to view, pay their invoices via text or email. It's frequent, friendly, and consistent every 5 days until the patient pays, up to 90 days. I love this. Hi, Amanda, you have a balance due with our office, Mansfield Dental Center. For questions, call our office. To view your invoice, pay off your balance, or choose from a menu of payment options, click this below. Then you get to look at your invoice. Thank you for choosing Abella to pay your balance. They can pay in full, or they can set up their own monthly payments. This is after the fact, okay? This is after the fact type stuff. So, and this is the setting up their own monthly payments on stuff. There's zero interest on that. The work's already been done. This is account receivable. So they get to pick their payment day, their payment info, and they can enroll in auto pay. I love the fact that Abella is bidirectional and integrates with Dentrix, EagleSoft, Open Dental, plus 95% of the softwares that are out there. Automatic payment posting, meaning payments made via Abella are auto posted back to your software. Now, it's an automated process. You're not having to do that. It can allocate provider payments to specific providers in your practice. And if a patient gets this text and happens to be by the office, they run in and pay you $100, great. We don't care. I mean, we just want you to get collections. So the payments you collect in your practice, they're synced back to Abella, so Abella will not send any further statements to them. So this is all done automatically. You don't have to do anything. It also, another part that I love, our records show that your open balance due to our office is more than 60 days past due. Please pay your invoice or set up a monthly payment plan by clicking the button below. Failure to pay or set up a payment plan in the following 15 days could result in your account being transferred to a collection agency. Believe me, people start paying. And this does not mean, when it says is more than 60 days past due, that doesn't mean it's in your AR as 30, 60, 90. This is stuff that where they were supposed to pay you and they haven't paid you. You got robust analytics. You can look through payment postings, collection percentages, deposits, average days to collect. This comes from Callie Ward with Corson Dental Group. We had 300 accounts in 90 plus days in AR. So the decision to go forward with Abella was a no-brainer. The same collection results would have taken a team member months, mostly driven by unanswered, unwanted calls to the patient. The return on investment for our group was very high, and our patients now have an easy way to pay. With Abella, we collected from people with accounts 2 to 3 years old that ignored traditional methods, phone calls and mailings. Most mailings now are put in the garbage. So what I love about this, we noticed the same thing in our practice. We saw patients. We had one patient owed us $3,500 for 3 years, and all of a sudden, because they had an option on their phone to be able to make $100 a month payments, that's what they chose to do. But Corson picked up $70,000 additional in 60 days collected. And if you look up here, this is what's amazing. The first 60 days collected greater than 70,000 of problem AR, greater than 80% was over 90 days. I promise you, you're not getting this money in your practice now. This is a large group, 150 offices. The thing I want you to look at is 53% collected over 90. Amazing. MB2 Dental, many people know who they are. They're a large DSO. They got over 200 offices. This is Louis Guzman, the Director of Practice Integration. Bella's amazing. It saves our office time, and most patients pay before a statement could be delivered. Our collections have been at an all-time high since implementing Bella. That's 30% increase in AR collected, a 60% decrease in the cost to do it, and 72% decrease in sales outstanding. This is the deal. Pricing. We usually, up to now, we've charged $1,000 up front. That's for software integration, training, AR data assessments, everything. We've waived that. There's no longer a fee. Software licensing fee. We don't take on that $70,000 that Course and Dental collected over 2 months. They paid $299 a month for that. They didn't pay 20% of what was collected or 30% like a collection agency sometimes will do, or they always do. We've waived the software licensing fee. So it is absolutely, now's the time. You have people that, first of all, you have your employees are furloughed. No one's making phone calls. Let's get this automated. We actually have over 250 people now that, since we started offering this, that now have become integrated. They're now collecting money. Some are collecting $6,000 a week. Some are collecting $12,000 a week. We're seeing it. I'm going to have some of these docs on as a guest on one of our future webinars so that you'll see. So this is waived enrollment fee and deferred licensing fee until July 1st. There's no obligation to continue. So come July 1st, you say, hey man, we made some money. It was great. I just don't think we're going to use this. So, hey, forget it. That's fine. We don't care. Because what we know, there's a great chance you're going to continue to use this. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing it. We want to help you during this time, and we want to make sure that you can get it done. So you can send an email request to enroll at info@abellaar.com. And I think Stephen has a separate connection that you can go to, put your practice name, practice phone. I think we have a new landing page that I didn't put on this, Stephen, so if you'll tell them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that link is over in the chat right now, and it includes an offer for Abella and Compassionate Finance. So take this time right before we start answering questions, maybe go over there, fill it out, takes maybe 15 seconds. But like you said, Dr. Baird, we've had people who are sitting in this exact same webinar maybe 2 weeks ago who started with Abella, who did collect $7,100, who are bringing money into their practice during this time. And just thinking from a patient perspective, I'm going to touch my phone to pay my bill before I start opening any mail or doing anything. So in this kind of different world we live in, paying by phone, super convenient. It's going to be fantastic for your patients.
It's so easy. You know, you can download training and user guides, but truthfully, this is automated. So there's not a whole lot of training that has to be done. And you can start using Abella. The one other thing that I'm going to tell you, and many of you have heard me talking about Compassionate Finance. If you'd like for us to send Compassionate Finance little webinar that I do, I'm more than happy to do that, because here's the reason. We've now waived the setup fee of $1,500 from Compassionate Finance and waived the $199 until July 1st. So it's usually $199 a month and a setup fee of $1,500. We've waived that. I want to say one more thing. We had somebody who said, oh yeah, well, it's not free because we're still having to pay like 2.5% fee. What do they call that? A processing fee. Yeah, there's a 2.5% processing fee. I'm going to give you an example. If they brought a Visa card into you, they're going to charge you, Visa's going to charge you 2.5%. If they pay with a Visa card through our portal, we're going to, you're going to get charged at 2.5%. It's just going to be directed through us. We're a payment portal. So you're not paying it. It's coming out of the patient's money that they're paying you. So
yeah, it's that same convenience fee that you get charged when you go to a gas station or any of those other places you use a debit card. So it's not even on top of that credit card fee. It's just, hey, that's that credit card fee.
You bet. All right. What questions do we have?
Oh, boy, do we have a lot of questions, but that's good. Thank you so much for interacting with us. All right. Should I include my practice loan and required insurance in my 35% pay?
Your practice loan and your insurance. No, those are separate categories. You'll have insurance. That may be under doctor's compensation for insurance. But the building pay, that is a facility expense. Insurance, if it's a personal insurance, it will be taken out of that 35%.
All right, perfect. Do you use any programs like Dental Intel to help your progress, or do you use another program to calculate your progress?
I calculate I've used Dental Intel in the past. I've worked with them. It's great information. There's tons of information. If you're willing to spend the time and to do that, that's fine. I run my business based on what I'm going to produce and what I'm going to collect. And to be honest, if you've got this in a QuickBooks file that you're looking at all of your expenses and what you're producing and everything else, yeah, you can get some information and data from Dental Intel. I think that there's a lot of companies coming out that are providing dashboards. You'll probably even see Productive Dentist Academy with a little small dashboard of what we call our 5 key KPIs, key practice indicators. So I certainly wouldn't fault somebody for using it. I just think most people are using it because they don't know where they're at, and they think that this data that's being pulled out of their software is going to somehow help them, and it does if you're willing to look at it. So that's my answer on that one.
All right, perfect. I have a quick question from the chat. What's involved with signing up? What do we need on our end? You just need to fill out that quick little form, usually first name, name, practice phone number, and what product you're interested in. We'll send that right over to you. I'll go ahead and repost that link in the chat here for y'all in a second. But yeah. Quick question from Dr. Baccaro again.
Yeah.
If I get funded for PPP, I push the can and run the risk, let's say June 15th, will I be able to use 8 weeks past June 30th, or will I need to spend it by June 30th?
When you get funded, when it's funded, when the money comes to you, that's when the 8 weeks starts. That's when the clock starts ticking. That's where you're going to spend it on 75% on payroll, 25% on other things that they specifically talk about. That's to get it forgiven. If you decide, I just need this money, we're still not open, set it in a side account, use it, you're going to have to pay it back, but it's a different animal. But yeah, the clock starts the day you're funded. And it used to be, you could ask to be funded whenever you wanted to be funded. Then they said no. Then they said within 5 days you'll be funded. Now that's within 10 days you'll be funded from the time you get approval. So it just keeps changing.
All right. Anonymous attendee, here we have, when figuring the payroll for the PPP loan, do you include non-taxed fringe benefits like cost of continued education or food and parties, uniforms, gifts, or dental care, and workman's comp costs?
I'm thinking probably the workman's comp. The others, I wouldn't think so, but I don't know. It's a great question. I just remember the answer. I'm sorry.
All right, this is a great one from Dr. Brian Amison here. Can you send me more information about Productive Dentist Program? My email is great content.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, that's going to be in your notes too, where you can go look at the website and kind of have an understanding of what it is that we do. Everybody thinks Productive Dentist Academy is how to do dentistry faster, and it's probably the farthest from that you can possibly be. It's about how to be intentional, how to be intentional about making money and running a business. And again, I only have 2 goals. One is to take great care of my patients, and the other is to reach my goals. And if I do those things, I'm very low stress as far as my business. I know what it's doing. I can go home and enjoy my family and my 13 grandkids, or number 13 on the way. I can do what I want to do because I'm being predictable. So, and can we call PDA and see if we can't get the copies of the dental economics roller coaster articles that I did. I think it was a 5-part series.
Yep.
If we can do that, we'll send it to them.
Absolutely. I will email Reagan right after this.
Great.
All right. We had a question about, let's see here. Could you please show the QuickBook categories again? I did the screen show wrong. We will be sending out a live recording, and you can kind of go through it and
look at it later
to your heart's content. Yeah, probably just need to review the recording. All right. Hello, Dr. Baird. I heard from another presentation that some dentist owners have applied for unemployment benefits. Do you recommend that since we are not receiving any income? Dr. Manuel versus DDS.
Yes, I do. You're going to get, in the state of Texas, you'll get about $1,000 a week, maybe a little over that, but it's better than nothing. And if you furloughed your employees, you're basically furloughed too. So I would.
All right, let's see here. How many tend to opt out of texts? And if they opt out, then back to regular collection system?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know what the actual number is. It's not as much as you would think, but if somebody does opt out, you pretty well know they're not wanting to pay that bill. They're going to probably be the one that's going to, you can send them paper statements, but they're probably going to be the one that's going to end up in collections. And you know how collections are. I mean, you send $10,000 and you're lucky if you collect 500. So anything at that point becomes good. But I don't know what that statistic, maybe we can find out. Charlie will throw us a bone, or Mike, and give us an idea, but I don't think it's very many at all. People love this process. It's so much more friendly than having somebody call you when you're at work and try to collect money. It's just, it's on their time, and it's on where they live, which is on their phone.
Yeah.
So,
and that's accompanied with an email as well. And we did have Charles Brown, who's the COO over at Comprehensive Finance, chime in. He said, exactly, little to no patients opt out.
That's what we've been seeing. So, and we haven't seen a drop with this COVID-19. We haven't seen a drop in people making payments. You'd think, oh, well, they're not going to pay. Well, no, everybody's wanting to pay their bills, and we're just not seeing a drop in that.
Okay, I'm going to combo this question, and Charlie, you might be able to help me out with this one. Does Abella work with WinOMS, which is a CareStream program? And then we had another doctor ask, does Abella work with CS SoftDent?
Info@abellaar.com. You can send that question to them, and they'll look, because we have had more softwares on these podcasts I've never even heard of. So it does not mean you can't use Abella. We will show you how to download out of that software so that you can, it will be a little more time consuming, but not much. Once you get used to it, it's just an automation that you're going to have to do. We may not be able to automatically go into that software, but it doesn't mean you can't use Abella.
Oh, right. We got a yes for the WinDent from Charles. And yeah, exactly what Dr. Baird said. When you hit that email or you fill out that form today, you're going to go right. You're going to be able to talk to somebody or get trained by somebody. They'll be able to kind of answer your questions for you there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Will Abella integrate with compassionate finance? Is a patient is behind on their compassionate finance, can they pay with Abella?
Two real separate softwares, although there's some commonality in it. We already have an in-process way of taking care of compassionate finance. It's already done with interest associated with it and everything else, whereas the AR software, Abella, is non-interest. There's no interest for them to pay, and it's a kind of an after the fact. But we follow through with our collections on compassionate finance.
All right, perfect. And another question here, I think I'm getting this right. With compassionate finance, if you choose not to continue past a certain day, let's say 6 months, and the patient have plans financed for 4 years, how is this handled?
I'll have to defer that to Charles. I know that we will continue to collect during that time. We're not going to turn that back over to you, so we're going to continue to collect.
Yeah, if we have something like that, I believe there is a loan management fee if you were to cancel the service and that balance needed to be paid out. So I don't know exactly what that would be. If you want to email info@compassionatefinance.com, we can probably answer that question for you a little bit broader.
Sure we can.
How are older patients accepting paying bills on their phone? Can you still send them a statement?
You can still send a statement if you choose to. Yeah, but most old people, even me, are I'm living on my phone. So yes, there's always an exception to the rule, but this is one that falls pretty well in line with what you would expect.
All right. I'm getting some pushback from employees on developing a budget. They appear to be unwilling to commit to specific amounts. Any advice?
Get new employees.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, if I get pushback, then I'm not the boss. So being a leader, and I would simply say, this is how we're going to run our business. And you have, and I've got some tough gals, but I'm telling you, I tell Gay, I said, Gay, she's in charge of supplies. I go, we got 6% budget. That's what you got to spend. Don't spend any more. Period. If you spend more now, if you get bills for more, and we see this, they'll love predictive analytics. They will love it because they now have clear understanding of what it is they need to do. The problem is when you don't know that you're running, you're spending too much in these different categories until you get the report from your accountant, and then you're looking at it going, well, what the hell is this? I thought we were in good shape. And then you go to your employee. Well, now it's 6-7 weeks later, and you're telling them to quit spending. Well, now you can show them, this is our budget. This is why, we know that our supply costs should run 5% or 4% or whatever it is that you want it to run. And that's where it is. Now, if it's higher than that every single month, then you have to make a decision. Either this person is intentionally ordering more than what it is, or you keep asking for more supplies. So maybe it is that you're going to decide that you have a 5% budget instead of a 4%, but all of it's going to be intentional. All of it's going to be predictive. There's going to be nothing left to chance. And I think that would really help you in managing the people.
All right, perfect. Does a patient have options to pay via credit card, e-check, and any other payment options?
They do. They can pay with HSA, debit, credit, pretty much everything. Everything that they can pay anywhere else, they can pay through Abella.
Yep, and Charlie chimed in with FSA as well, and then you nailed the other 3.
Yep.
No check, no Bitcoin, says Charlie. So, okay. Yeah, and then he qualified it with yet. He is definitely a cryptocurrency guy, so I'm sure one day.
Me too. So, hey, maybe we'll start taking Bitcoin. Who knows?
Do you do collection calls?
With Abella?
I would think it's probably more for
Automated.
finance, but no, if we've exhausted efforts trying to get the patient back on track, which our team does, I believe for about 180 days after a late payment, then they will make the recommendation, hey, you can write it off, hey, you can turn this over to collections, but no, we just try to keep them on track with their payments.
Whereas on compassionate finance, we do make calls. We're calling all the time, but Abella is an automated software that helps your office. Like I say, at $299 a month, I mean, you're paying somebody probably $3,000 a month or more to do collections. And this is just an augment help to them, and they will love it.
All right. And the last one on our slate for today is, what are laws about texting for collections? It was my understanding that there are limits on that.
We'll have to wait for Charles' answer. I do not have the answer. I know that every you have federal regulations, you have state regulations. I know that texting for collections is, we're doing it in all 50 states. So that is our deal. Now, I know that there are more rules about calling people after hours. I know there's rules that federal regulations that, if you're calling people during the dinner hour, that you can be violating federal law. Which when you violate federal law, it's a whole lot different than with texting for collection. So we have no problems with that at all.
And that's a great point Charles makes, is like, this really isn't collections. It's more invoicing. It's like, hey, you've gone through, you've made your down payment, insurance is kicked in, whatever it's kicked in. And hey, we got $40 left over. We got $400 left over. How would you like to finish making that payment? So it is a way of just kind of invoicing that. Whenever I say we have our last question, we always have a few more kind of roll in. And this is a good one. I think Dr. Sofferman would like to know, have you heard about AD's aerosol removal system? I know you and Dr. Costas talked a lot about kind of aerosols in dentistry moving forward after the pandemic.
I have not, but I would love to get a link to their website, and I really appreciate you bringing it up, because those types of things are going to be what's going to make it okay for us to get back to work. But I would love for you to send me a link to that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if you want to put that over in the chat, we'll make sure we pick that up, and we'll put that over to Dr. Baird. Okay, now budgeting for supplies, not knowing what PPE we are going to need going forward, N95 masks, disposable gowns, etc.
I would make estimates, because you're not going to know. It's almost like if you just opened up your office and you're going to start doing predictive analytics, you don't really know. And so I would probably make an educated guess of what you think it's going to increase your cost there. And I would add that. It may take our supply cost from 4% to 5%. It may take it from 5%, but we don't know right now. You're going to start, but what you will know is within 2 months, you're going to go, this is what it's costing us. And now it becomes part of your business. It becomes part of your predictive analytics. And so I don't have the answer, but I do know that within 2 months, you'll have the answer. Exactly.
Perfect. I have a small office and one assistant and one front desk. Of most patients I see are on Denti-Cal. Will predictive analytics, Abella, and compassionate finance be suited for an office like ours? Thank you.
Absolutely. There's no question. I mean, I will tell you, if you take no insurance except that one, if you collect 100% of what you do, you send out 3 invoices a month, Abella's probably not for you. Compassionate finance helps people, and we'll send out the compassionate finance webinar that I do, but I mean, it's going to help you do more dentistry, period. And it's a big deal. Did I miss something on it, or I don't know? I think that's the answer. Yes, it can help you. And I would do predictive analytics if I was running a snow cone stand. It makes no difference. I would know exactly what we were planning on producing, my marketing. If I spend this much on marketing, I can expect this to jump. I've seen how my numbers, I'm able to look at that. Now you can do that through Dental Intel, but I want to do it real time today. Theirs is real time, but they're not looking at expenses. They're not looking at those things. They're looking at things in your dental software. They're not running your business. They're giving you guides. They're giving you cues on where your business may be having problems. But if you're doing this, you'll know exactly where your business is having problems. I can guarantee you can spend 5 minutes looking at your own P&L, not the one that comes from your accountant, and you'll know how you're doing.
All right, perfect. And just one more lens of clarification there. We are not collecting, we are working accounts receivable on your behalf. That is really kind of the ultimate mantra there. So we are done with questions, Dr. Baird, today. That was fantastic. I'm sure everybody's going to go through and screenshot those slides. So I'll just give a few programming notes and we'll go ahead and say goodbye for the day. Okay. So this is, of course, being recorded. Please share it with team members, share it with peers. We'd love to have them on in the next webinar that we're doing, which will be tomorrow, where we will have special guest Dr. Peter Bolden of the Bulletproof Dental Podcast. Dr. Baird spoke at their summit at the end of February. I think it's probably the last dental convention to happen before everything happened. And they really have a great rapport, and this will be a very interesting conversation for everybody. I will include today predictive analytics. Oh, what was that?
Let me bring up one thing. It says, any recommendations for outsourcing insurance payments? Aldo, I have info on air cleaners. Why did you not respond to my question? I don't really have any recommendations for outsourcing on insurance payments. There's a company that we're starting to do some work with, Global BP Solutions. They're based out of Harare in Africa. And I would say I'm seeing some great results with that. And the people, we actually have 2 that work with us at PDA, and I think we have a couple that work with us at CF. So anyway, that's to answer that. Sorry we missed it.
Yeah, perfect. And so you'll be getting a recording for everything at the end of this afternoon. You'll have Predictive Analytics Part 1 and Part 2. You can also listen to Dr. Baird's podcast, the Productive Dentist Podcast, episode 55 and 56. Great companion pieces to this content. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Baird, and thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.